Hey guys, welcome back to Grit and Grace. Thank you so much for joining me today. As we continue on with Mental Health Awareness Month, I am going to start covering post-traumatic stress disorder. This is a big one. It's not easy to deal with. There's no way to cover it in one video, so be looking for additional information to come out on PTSD over the next couple days. This is one that I deal with a lot at work, a lot in part to, unfortunately, abuse, but also long-term prison stays is where I see it a lot. And we really got to know PTSD because of the military. And then as we started, kind of branching out, realizing that other people struggle with PTSD as well. So it's really, important to bring that information to light. So what PTSD is it is a mental health illness that gets created in somebody. They go on to develop it after a traumatic event. So this traumatic event could be a car accident. It could be a natural disaster, war, being in prison, abuse of some type. But whatever, whatever this traumatic event is that happened, not everybody will go on to develop PTSD. Doctors aren't entirely sure why some people develop PTSD and some don't. They do feel like it may have something to do with how much trauma that person has already experienced in their life to that point. But they also factor in inherited mental health illnesses as well, like anxiety and depression. So if you're already at risk for those, let's say that you have a family member, immediate family, a parent, sibling that has it, it's not uncommon for people to develop or kind of overtake somebody else's behaviors and how they handle it. So if we're around a lot of people who are constantly anxious, that may come off onto us as well. It's just that environmental thing that we have going on. So doctors, like I said, they're not sure, but they did feel like that could have something to do with it. So I found that to be pretty interesting. There's also complex PTSD, and I wanted to make sure to address that as well. So the difference between the two is that complex PTSD is a repeated trauma. So think of long-term domestic violence abuse is a common example. And I hate to say it because it hurts my heart, but it happens, unfortunately, is long-term physical and sexual child abuse. So this trauma is something that people are experiencing over and over and over again, usually for months to years. And it creates a lot of those same problems that we see in PTSD if it was a, more of a single event type of situation. What we see a lot with PTSD is nightmares, anxiety, depression, really secluding ourselves away from our loved ones. We don't want to open up as much when we have PTSD. It's very difficult with PTSD because it's like you can't escape your mind. You can escape people, you can escape places, you can escape different things. But how do you escape what goes on repeat inside of your head multiple times a day, every single day? So a lot of times you'll see when people are struggling with PTSD, they stay extremely busy. So from sunup to sundown, they are preoccupied, they're into something, and very routinely into something, I might add too. Every single day is pretty much A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D. The mentality with the routine is that if nothing changes, then nothing bad can happen. If I have that control over my environment, then I don't have to worry about the things that I can't control. So, unfortunately, most of us, we know that that's not possible. And try as we do to try to control our surroundings, our environment, the things that happen, the people that come in and out of our world, we can only control things so much. And so for a lot of times, people who are experiencing PTSD, they do struggle a lot with, that irritability and that anxiousness and not being able to control everything. So it's not uncommon that people with PTSD do struggle with drug and alcohol abuse. And I've seen everything. I mean, if the bipolar video that I did the other day, I notice a lot with, bipolar patients, clients they go through, they like more uppers because they're trying to mimic a manic state. and try to keep themselves up and out of that depression. People with PTSD can be, it's more what they're looking for. So it's not uncommon at night for people with PTSD to really struggle to be able to go to sleep or stay asleep. So they may look for something that's more of a downer, alcohol, marijuana, things like that, that are going to get them to be able to go to sleep, stay asleep. In waking hours, they may prefer an upper, cocaine, methamphetamine, caffeine, anything that's going to keep them in kind of go gadget mode. If they're always going, then they don't have time to think or feel. If we take that away or something happens and falls through, it's almost scrambling to try to replace that activity so that there's not this downtime where we have time to start thinking and feeling, and it just kind of goes downhill from there. PTSD can range in severity. Some people are able to deal with their PTSD, through their support systems, and they reach out, they journal, they have things that they like to do. And then some people really struggle with PTSD on a more of a severe level. The nightmares are keeping them up at night. Some people with more severe PTSD are going to have flashbacks where they can be anywhere and just go back into that environment, that situation, that traumatic event that occurred. You hear of the flashbacks a lot with military and war, especially the Vietnam War. I heard a lot about people that could be sitting in their living room and hear fireworks go off outside on 4th of July, New Year's, whatever. And it can instantaneously take them back to them being in the jungle of the Vietnam, and they cannot tell the difference between I am in Vietnam versus I am in my living room, wherever I live. And I can't even imagine how scary that is, for somebody to deal with. People who have been in prison for some length of time, they also struggle a lot. When you think about a prison environment, you never really know what's going on. You might hear some chatter through the grapevine that somebody's going to get jumped or somebody, is going to do this, that, or the third, but you never really know for sure. And when you're incarcerated, you're in this, you're usually locked up for the majority of the day, but in the times that people are able to get out, that's when they're planning, that's when they're talking. And when you're not really sure what's going on, you feel in a prison and or county jail environment, you have to be hyper aware at all times of your surroundings and what's going on. And so when people get released from incarceration, it's not like that just goes away. So they, a lot of times people will find that when they're in major public environments, Walmart, Target, the mall, anywhere where there's a lot of people, they may feel that they're having to listen to little bits and pieces of everybody's conversations to make sure that they're safe and that nothing is going on. You'll also find that a lot of times people with PTSD do not like to have their back to an open space. So if they're in a room, they're going to be more with their back against a wall where they can see everything around them, so there's no surprises and no, jump scares. One thing that you want to make sure that you're doing with somebody who struggles with PTSD is never, come up behind them without letting them know that you're coming. I make an active effort with all of my clients that come into the office, whether they're mine individually or not, to be mindful of, people who have PTSD. So if I am coming up behind them and I know that they haven't seen me, I make sure to announce myself so I don't startle them. Like I said, PTSD can be really rough, but there is a lot that people can do to help themselves cope with it. Does not matter how, necessarily how the PTSD got created. It does a little bit in the sense of how we're going to go about the counseling process and what we need to work on specifically. But there's been a lot of really successful cases with people with PTSD, and if they're willing to deal with it, they're willing to deal with it the right way, they can, really live a good life and have their symptoms under control. So like I said, be looking for additional information. Tomorrow I'm actually going to post and go over a article that I read and found a couple years ago, actually for school. A psychiatrist did a breakdown of how all of the different Winnie the Pooh characters represent a different symptom of PTSD, as we believe that the creator of Winnie the Pooh, A.A. Milne, probably had PTSD. So be checking for that, and I hope you guys stay safe and have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much. Bye.